Chappell Roan, get behind me. A real woman defender has logged on. Hi everyone, today we're talking about Chappell Roan, pop star, staunch advocate for queer rights, and current #1 Billboard charting artist. If you don't already know Chappell Roan, I don't blame you. Her career has exploded in a very short period of time, and I think people have kind of taken advantage of how new she is to this level of attention to try to force kind of vindictive narratives about her, almost as a reaction to her meteoric rise in popularity. Throughout this year, Chappell Roan has been the subject of multiple media campaigns targeting her for things like setting boundaries with fans, or with the media, but more recently for not endorsing Kamala Harris for president. The media launched these campaigns using out-of-context quotes, misleading headlines, and clickbait in general to not so subtly polarize people, not just against Chappell Roan, but what she's saying and why. I'm gay, but I'm not an outright fan of Chappell Roan. I've heard her music and have liked it, but I haven't gone out of my way to listen to it. I do have a lot of respect for Chappell herself and how far she's come on her own, and how she continues to stand her ground on issues that matter to her. But I think it's common for women in entertainment to be excessively questioned when they have a history of standing their ground. I think a lot of people want to find hypocrisy or some magical argumentative plot hole to uniformly dismantle a woman's position on something, kind of for the sake of it. You know, wear them down. She surely must be misinformed or uneducated or missing something that some blogger has surely thought more about. It almost feels like a petty attempt to demystify how artists are treated and spoken about, as if blind fire criticism for whatever an artist says or feels is somehow bringing them closer to reality or something. But it's also, in this case, being used at least partially to justify the actions of people who overly idolize and use those feelings as an excuse to harass them. So it's kind of stupid in that way. All of this is very stupid. The media has treated Chappell Roan really unfairly, and how they did that has given blue checkmark Twitter weirdos and just odd people in general both cause and ammunition to harass her and lie about what she said. Chappell has been open about her mental health struggles in the past and how it currently affects her as an artist and a performer, and the kind of things supposed fans have done to her are pretty horrifying. She's been stalked at her family home, followed to airports and hotel rooms, had her dad's phone number leak, and was even sexually assaulted in public by a stranger. It should go without saying that no one should have to tolerate any of that. And Chappell has spoken directly on how unacceptable and horrifying these kinds of things are.
I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job, the career field I've chosen. That does not make it okay. That doesn't make it normal. It doesn't mean I want it, doesn't mean that I like it. I don't give a fuck if you think it's selfish of me to say no for a photo or for your time or for a hug. That's not normal. That's weird. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make. That's fucking weird. I'm allowed to say no to creepy behavior.
This TikTok is concise, correct, and hard to disagree with, if you're normal. Another smaller controversy broke out at the VMAs when a paparazzi photographer known for being loud and kind of an asshole yelled at Chappell Roan, and Chappell understandably yelled back.
I gotta shut the f*** up, Jim. What's the spot? Shut the
I don't think it's fair to judge someone based on one short, clearly tense moment, but I also think women should be allowed to yell at men. I think that's okay. But without the stories that made people start thinking of her as ungrateful or pretentious, I don't think this incident would have really caught as much traction as it did. There are plenty of people who support Chappell and how she stood up for herself in the past, but there's almost a manufactured resentment coming from out-of-touch media journalists and blue checkmark accounts that has no real substance or logic to it. Just an emotional lash out at your favorite social media character for not acting the way you want them to. And average Joe random people online read these articles and just fall in line behind the same bland, lazy, uninformed noise that social media churns out on a slow news day. It feeds people's entitlement and justifies their resentment for people that they don't really know, which is just as parasocial as loving someone you don't really know. The pseudo-controversy surrounding Chappell Roan came to a head in the aftermath of an interview she did with The Guardian, where she spoke briefly about the upcoming US election. Specifically, how she wanted trans rights to be taken more seriously. It's weird how out of proportion the story ended up getting, because the interview wasn't really about politics at all. It's just a short quote about it at the end. And I should add that Chappell has raised money for queer organizations and donated proceeds to queer rights charities as well as charities that support Palestine. And she's been consistently vocal about how much these issues matter to her. In June, she was actually invited by the White House for their annual Pride event and declined because of her principles. Her quote on the election is among the shortest in the article, and it reads,
"I have so many issues with our government in every way," she says. "There are so many things that I would want to change, so I don't feel pressured to endorse someone. There's problems on both sides, and I encourage people to use your critical thinking skills. Use your vote. Vote small. Vote for what's going on in your city. The change she wants to see in the U.S. is this election year, she says, instantly, is trans rights. They cannot have cis people making decisions for trans people, period.
This quote, as concise as I think it is, was ripped to pieces and plastered all over the internet to spin narratives about Chappell Roan and maybe some secret ulterior motive that she has to subvert Kamala Harris and secure the election for Donald Trump. Thank you, Republican sleeper agent Roan. Angry, bitter liberals swarmed the out-of-context quotes to condescend to Chappell, as if she wasn't aware of what she was saying. Acting like Chappell Roan isn't pro-LGBTQ enough because she won't endorse Harris. It's like when these same Twitter liberals said that demanding Joe Biden dropping out was anti-black because he was popular with older black voters. That's not how anything works. This is an excessively privileged position to take. We're gonna win, VP Harris will be elected, and it's because of the many of thousands of staff and volunteers and tens of millions of reasonable adults who understand life under Trump again would be horrific for all of us. It's actually privileged to ask your government to do stuff. When you want the government to do something, well, think about what if they killed you instead. Would you like that? Chappell Roan is an embarrassment to lesbians. You can't borrow from drag aesthetics and embrace your sexuality and then pretend the party that would criminalize our happiness is the same as the one who protects it. Protects it is doing a lot of work here. What exactly is Kamala Harris trying to protect when it comes to trans or queer rights? Every quote from Chappell Roan is what a shallow person thinks a deep person would say. See, that's cool because that's a great way of saying nothing and then getting a bunch of likes on Twitter. Everything she says is something that someone who is stupid would think is smart. Problems on both sides is the most cowardly, uneducated, and downright embarrassing thing you could possibly say about this election.
That's what I've been waiting for.
No, you will vote for genocide and you'll like it. Weird take for me. I don't know. I don't like that. You will build the wall or we'll feed you to the Trump supporters. Like, it's just a really gross attitude to have. Chappell Roan's ability to be an incredibly refreshing voice of reason one moment and then the most annoying, ignorant, humorless weirdo the next moment should really be studied. Yeah, where's the humor? Come on. We're all laughing and smiling and you're ruining our time voting for what we want. That feeling when you don't want to alienate your leftist fan base or your conservative family so you just end up sounding stupid. It's so awesome that people who are informed are called stupid for caring about reality. I don't know. That's just really annoying to me. If you're a high-profile figure in the LGBTQ+ community, you need to take a stand in this election. Both siding it when our community is under direct attack from the GOP is an irresponsible cop-out. I feel like we've heard the same thing since 2016. You have to take a stand over and over again with the party that has given you, Hamilton? Do people know that you could vote for stuff that you want instead of only having to vote against the worst possible option? This is just an attempt to make you settle. Not for what you want, but for whatever Kamala might offer. She shall spare you under her rule. Thou shalt cast the ballot for she, lest you perish at the hands of the enemy. I think people are partly taking advantage of her perspective as someone who doesn't constantly engage in politics to talk down to her as if she does not understand her own words. Meanwhile, they aren't even addressing what she actually said, just vaguely shaming the act of speaking out and distorting her message to justify it. It's no better than what Libs of TikTok does to queer people. But again, she's right when you hear what she's actually saying. Listen to women. I think a lot of people expected something more similar to Taylor Swift's endorsement of Harris, which was similarly surrounded by public pressure, but Taylor Swift isn't progressive the way that Chappell Roan is, and is way more corporate than Chappell Roan is, which is why it's actually easier for Taylor Swift to endorse Harris than it is to stay silent. It's an instant PR win. But because Chappell Roan wants to stand on business, because she wants to stay consistent, she gets attacked for somehow abandoning queer people or something, even though she explicitly said she wanted more attention brought to trans rights. Somehow, in the liberal mind, that means she's an embarrassment to lesbians. It's a gross thing to say, really. A lot of the queer community that I saw responding negatively to Chappell Roan's take here came across very selfish to me. Like, no, my gay rights, my gay rights. They said they would protect my gay rights. I don't care what's gonna happen to the trans. It's not like the pressure for Chappell Roan to endorse Harris came out of nowhere, though. The Democrats have almost leaned on her identity and reputation to gain favor with voters, by association.
Well, what we really need is a feminine nominee. A what? A feminine nominee.
Do you think they're going to play Hot to Go?
This is a Hillary Clinton book event, but you know, anything's possible, Corey.
I think if Hillary Clinton was using my art to launder her image in the twilight of her life, I would fucking explode. This is the party flexing the endorsement of Dick Cheney.
I was a big supporter of waterboarding. I was a big supporter of the enhanced interrogation techniques.
And you opposed the administration's actions of doing away with waterboarding?
Yes.
You really want the queer drag artist to hop on board like 2 weeks after that? It's cool that we so quickly forget that Democrats have been in power while we've lost Roe v. Wade. They've been selling weapons to Israel to conduct genocide and war crimes now on 4 fronts, but conveniently lost the fight for $15 minimum wage 3 years ago. Anti-trans legislation has been festering in state legislatures across the country with virtually no federal pushback. The Supreme Court is packed with a supermajority of conservative criminals and perjurers, and rather than target any of those dire, relevant issues for this election, the Democratic Party is passively pressuring marginalized people to vote for them by fear-mongering the consequences of not doing so. That's not allyship. That's not support. That's a threat. Kamala Harris has nothing to offer queer people, just empty tolerance for whatever that's worth. And the Democrats using Chappell Roan's image and art is an intentional co-opting of her public image and identity. It's gross. They also stole her merch, which sucks. Fuck you for that. That's way too comfortable for my liking. I think it's gross for the Democratic Party to do nothing outright for trans and queer people, only to turn around and embrace the aesthetics of pride and queer pop when it's convenient for them for marketing purposes. And the media almost manufactures consent for the Democrats by labeling Chappell the one who's out of line and in the wrong for not going along with this. It also honestly puts Chappell herself individually in an uncomfortable position where she's sort of expected to fall in line behind Harris and the Democrats because they like her music, use it in their TikToks. I'm sure it's a really great way not to have to pay any licensing fees for using it to advertise your campaign. What about how Harris wants a Republican in her cabinet?
Will you appoint a Republican to your cabinet?
Yes, I would. And I think it would be to the benefit of the American public to have a member of my cabinet who was a Republican.
Is Chappell really expected to endorse her knowing that? How would that not make her hypocritical? So Chappell responded with a TikTok shortly after the endorsement backlash began online, and her main point in the first video was that she's being taken out of context, and she reads the full quote herself.
I have encouraged people to use critical thinking skills, learn about what they're voting for, learn about who they're voting for, and ask questions, and it's being completely taken out of context, per usual. There is nuance to what I say in interviews, and I think it's important that people use critical thinking. I think it's important for me to question authority and question world leaders and question myself, question my algorithm, question if some person that tweeted something about someone else is even true. It's important to question because that's how I think we move forward. If you come to my shows, if you read my full interviews, if you literally know anything about me and for what I stand for, you know that this is not lip service, this is not virtue signaling, that my actions have always paved the way for my project and the people who really know me. Actions speak louder than words, and actions speak louder than an endorsement. No, I'm not voting for Trump. And yes, I will always question those in power and those making decisions over other people.
She's trying to explain how she comes to the conclusions that she does, not trying to give people the answers to their political questions. And she's right. Again, she's especially right in encouraging others to question the party in power regardless of who they are. She's telling you to think and not be naive and overly trusting. But Democrats hate that. They love to be naive and blind so they can act surprised every time something really fucked up happens and then ask you for money about it. Hey guys, it's me, Nancy Pelosi. You may have heard that gay marriage was recently overturned by the Trump 2025 cabinet. I'm gonna need you to give me $30 about this. So needless to say, this TikTok wasn't taken super seriously by people. Some people have said that she misspoke or wasn't clear enough here, but I think she was pretty clear. You can't call this fence sitting. It's not both sides, it's one side. She's voting for Harris, she's just doing it reluctantly, like many young people are right now. She's speaking to a real feeling of disenfranchisement that's responsible for millions of people never voting in America. It almost feels like playground bullying for someone that's not playing by the right rules. You can't demand more from the party in power that's not fair to them. Only lobbyists and wealthy donors get to dictate what the Democratic Party platform is. Those are the rules. A day after her first TikTok, Chappell posted another, more distressed video where the frustration of being misunderstood, deliberately or not, is clearly weighing on her.
I just woke up and to like people just skewing it even more.
It really sucks because a lot of people that feel this kind of pushback from liberals and condescending millennials in general often end up radicalized to the right because the logic of what these weirdos are saying doesn't add up. Obviously, that wouldn't happen to Chappell because of her principles, thankfully. But this is also how people get really bitter and cynical about politics and never want to talk about it.
Endorsing and voting are completely different. I don't agree with a lot of what is going on with, like, policies.
Endorsing and voting aren't the same thing. And voting out of a sense of responsibility does not mean you have to collaborate with and encourage that same candidate, especially with the actual context of what we're talking about. I honestly think what Chappell says at the end of this video is really brave for someone in her position.
I'm not picking the sides of what we have right now. Yes, one's obviously better than the other. But Jesus fucking Christ, I hope you don't settle for what we have and put your name behind someone that you don't fully trust because of their blatant actions.
And she's logically, morally, scientifically right. Obviously, one is better than the other, but that doesn't make that person good on their own. I think a lot of liberals really globbed onto this video more and almost ran victory laps about it because they considered wearing her down to this emotional point as a win. Shame is working, guys. One example is this TikTok responding to her.
Obviously, fuck the policies of the right.
All right, we're on the same page on that one.
But also, fuck some of the policies on the left.
Oh, now you lost me.
That's why I can't, like, put my entire name and my entire project behind one.
I mean, that's kind of how voting works right now in America.
It's cool that we can just switch up what we're talking about and completely misrepresent the thing that she's saying. She's not talking about voting, asshole. She's talking about endorsement as a public figure, as an artist. No one gives a fuck who you're voting for or endorsing with your stupid degrees behind you, nerd. I should also add, when she says fuck some of the policies on the left, she doesn't mean like leftist. She means the Democrats, because that's the only left in America.
If someone is publicly endorsing a political figure, that doesn't even mean that they're gonna fucking vote for them.
I mean, what's the strategy behind that? I mean, after the primaries, I don't think that's a thing. I don't think there's any benefit to a corporation or person endorsing a candidate in a general election and not actually doing it. So
it's really awesome to me that he edited out what she said about Palestine.
Fuck some of the shit that has gone down in the Democratic Party that has failed people like me and you. And more so, Palestine.
No response to that at all. Zero response to anything regarding the genocide going on, but he really wants to get real corrective on who endorses and why, even though he completely forgot we were talking about endorsement, you know, a minute ago. Now he knows everything about endorsement and he's gonna correct her on it. Like, an endorsement is a political move. It's a calculated thing to do as a brand. I don't think he is really thinking about that because he's small-minded.
You're losing me again.
No. This is not me playing both sides.
Sure about that?
I'm critiquing both sides because they're both so fucked up.
Yep, sounds like you're playing both sides.
Critiquing both sides is playing both sides. How is she playing the Republican side at all? Even a little bit. Her existence is contrary to the Republican side. That's why it's really stupid to assume that she would ever support Republicans. But I'm pretty sure this guy just assumes that she doesn't know that Republicans actually threaten queer people's existence. She doesn't understand that part. 46,000 likes.
Voting is all we have right now in the system.
I mean, that kind of is the system of democracy, but yeah, there's a lot more you could do in between elections.
She just doesn't know what to do about the world. She just doesn't get it. Yeah, have you tried volunteering for a Democratic primary campaign? It's cool. You can just not address what she's saying and then say something else. 46,000 likes.
I'm not picking the sides of what we have right now.
I mean, it kind of sounds like you've picked a side in terms of voting for Kamala Harris, but you just don't know much about the rest of the Democratic platform.
You just don't know enough about the Democratic platform. No, you just don't know enough. There's one mention of policy to protect LGBTQ people in Kamala Harris's issue page on her website, and it's for passing the Equality Act. And all it does is enshrine anti-discrimination protections. You know, the Civil Rights Act is supposed to protect queer people from discrimination too. The only other mention of LGBTQ issues is under Trump's Project 2025 agenda to get you real scared on what he's gonna do. It doesn't even specifically mention anti-discrimination protections for adoption, which are a much more long-standing specific issue. It's just, you know, employment and housing, which is already supposed to be in place. That is how the law is supposed to function already.
Yes, one's obviously better than the other.
All right, we're kind of getting back on the same page again.
But Jesus fucking Christ.
Oh boy.
I hope you don't settle for what we have and put your name behind someone that you don't fully trust.
I fully trust that Kamala Harris and all the Democrats up and down the ballot are going to protect democracy and make this country a better place.
Protect democracy. Motherfucker, they couldn't make voting a national holiday. Remember they said they were gonna do that? Hey, what happened to that, asshole? Why is that not on the issues page? Just forgot about that, huh? They'll do it this time. They'll protect the elections or whatever. Sure, they'll save democracy this time. Saturday Night Live also had a really awful segment the same week as Chappell's TikToks, where Bowen Yang plays Mu Dang, who acts like a caricature of Chappell Roan.
It has come to the point where I need to set some boundaries.
Oh, you need to set boundaries?
Reminder, women owe you nothing.
I guess the analogy is supposed to be that Chappell is like a zoo animal with how people treat her, like a viral zoo animal, little baby hippo. But that's not a good analogy. And it's a really unfunny skit, which is the worst part.
Do not yell my name or expect a photo just because I'm your parasocial bestie or because you appreciate my talent.
Apparently this was supposed to be supportive of Chappell, but it doesn't come across that way.
I'm your favorite hippo's favorite hippo.
I thought it was an obvious metaphor. Mu Dang can't speak for herself or understand what's going on, but if she could, I bet she and Chappell would genuinely have a lot in common. Chappell is speaking for herself, though. She's just being taken out of context and not listened to at all. Am I insane? This is kind of an infantilizing metaphor because Mu Dang is a baby. They're both just innocent little creatures. They don't know what's going on. At the tail end of these media narratives having their ripple effect on social media, and pretty much instantly after Chappell herself returned to performing after taking a mental health break, I saw a post complaining about her merch prices that also started like a mini discourse. Now, people do this all the time, complaining online. I'm doing it right now. It's very fun. But this post is leveraging the recent trend to hate on Chappell for social media engagement. Can we unnormalize $100 sweatshirts, please? We need to bring back $20 t-shirts and $40 sweatshirts right now. Nothing about this makes sense to me at all. You can't really say she's a hypocrite or anything. She's being consistent with her values by using American-made, union-made merch and paying the people that make it a fair wage. It's not an easy thing to organize, and it makes the prices higher. But that's not her fault. That's just how America works. See, I only buy $15 Temu sweatshirts that are made with child labor, and I love them. That's how you really support artists. There's no criticism or principle here, just kind of complaining just to do it. And I don't think this would have gotten as much attention as it did if not for the disingenuous media coverage Chappell has been getting up until now. People's negative attitude towards public figures often ends up snowballing into more and more vague gestures of they're bad, she's sucks. Also, the person that posted this is a Katy Perry stan. Yuck. Katy Perry continues to work with Dr. Luke, a known abuser in the music industry. So the attempt at undermining a principled, consistent, feminist, queer advocate just so you can advertise that, I don't know, the irony's not lost on me. Not only that though, but Katy Perry's sweatshirts are $75 and definitely not made with union American labor. She also sells this for $35. Redbubble shit that's almost definitely made unethically. This is what you like instead? All of these stories and the way they propagate online perpetuate and justify the hostility and intrusive harassment that artists like Chappell Roan receive. And right now, I think we're in a very toxic time for the internet in general. People are more online post-COVID and are more polarized during an election year full of misinformation and games of social media telephone that truly disconnect people from reality. The way these disconnected people treat those that they hate or even those that they look up to can be unhealthy at best and dangerous at worst. These attitudes and behaviors absolutely impact artists and their mental health, especially on the level that Chappell Roan is at. And I think it's irresponsible on behalf of the outlets that have misled people on what Chappell Roan thinks to have paved the way for this kind of behavior continuing. To go back to Chappell Roan's takes on the election, if those with larger platforms, especially platforms that are already being leveraged by the Democratic Party, if those artists refuse to voice their reasonable dissent and discomfort with the material policies that they see, who else can at that level? Kamala Harris does not know who I am, doesn't likely know who you are. She does know Chappell Roan, and Chappell is speaking to the struggles of people whose voices are regularly trampled by both political parties in America. And it's the right thing to do. Gay people and queer people aren't obligated obligated to vote for Democrats their entire lives because they aren't trying to actively target them. Democrats still collaborate, endorse, and support in every way the violent, bloodthirsty Republican Party that seeks to destroy queer safety and representation in this country. Why would I endorse that? Why would you? Why would she? Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press the like button or subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know what you thought in the comments section. I'd love to know. I also have a Patreon you can check out. You'll see everyone's names at the end of this video. I post bonus content on there as well as early previews for uploads. So check it out if you're interested. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.